Welcome back to Tristan's Spectacular Picks as we enter Week 10 of the 2025 NFL season, and we had quite the stellar week as we enter the double digits and beyond the trade deadline. How's it going, everyone? We're back with more spectacular picks as we are now past the halfway point of the season and also past the trade deadline notably. So some teams, they're going to look a little different, and you can get an idea of what teams are looking to be for the rest of the season, whether they're going for it or are they just trying to build for next year. So as per usual, we'll make the picks and we'll preview those matchups, followed by Eliminator Challenge, the Pick'em League trends, and the results for that. And then lastly, we'll be looking back at Week 9. So here we go. We have a divisional matchup for Thursday Night Football, while Denver will be sporting the throwback jerseys. I thought one team struggled compared to the other, but the results I thought went as expected. The Raiders, they're looking fairly good since their bye week return. And Denver, they've just been doing, their own thing, even though they did have a tough game, but they did ultimately win. I think we're looking at a very competitive matchup here, and the Raiders could be a shocker. But I'm going to pick the home team on their home grounds, and that is Denver. We're heading to Berlin, Germany, aka the home of Hertha Berlin, who are now the little brothers of Union Berlin. How times have changed. Anyways, at the Olympia Stadion, the Falcons and Colts will be going at it, and it should be an interesting matchup. Atlanta Falcons, they have not honestly been good enough due to their inconsistency, while the Indianapolis Colts, I'd say, are still exceeding the expectations still, minus a loss last week. I've talked what Atlanta can offer, and they'll have Penix Jr. back at the realm of quarterback. Indianapolis, they just have fun, and I know it wasn't ideal as mentioned last week, but I think they'll be just fine, and with that being said, they'll get a win in Dutchland. First, I did not realize that Carolina has 5 wins, which is a little horrifying to me. They'll host New Orleans in a divisional matchup and look to not disappoint their fans, just like their MLS club did recently at home. The Saints will be looking to be more aggressive in this part of the season, but I don't know if it's going to work out. Carolina pulled off another solid win, and they're not as inconsistent as Atlanta, so give them their credit, honestly. And this week, I do see them winning again, so I'm going to pick Carolina. Honestly, it's a matter of players on the Giants stepping up to the occasion, which I feel we're seeing, but the amount of ask is becoming a large task currently. They'll be up against the creative Chicago Bears, who once again had an offensive explosion last week, but the amount of points conceded was not very good. I'm not too concerned about that, however, this week. I think we'll see a game that can be close, but Chicago needs to at least stop with the slow starts. But I think we'll be all good this week, and they'll get a win at home. And potentially, it's the first snow game of the year. This is going to be a tough game as both teams look to chase down Indianapolis, but that's not going to be easy. Houston, as mentioned, has accepted what their team is, and they're performing week in and out lately, while Jacksonville has not looked good since their bye week, minus their overtime win. They're injured, but they did also add the likes of Jacoby Myers, which is someone I do highly rate as a wide receiver, and he'll be the primary wide receiver, even though I do prefer him as a wide receiver too. The Texans' defensive front will show their presence, but it'll also be a new-look Jaguars team. It's time to see others step up for this team, honestly. And can they do it? I say why not, but this one's going to go down to the wire. The Bills are back in all cylinders, but what will Mike McDaniel get out of the Miami Dolphins this time after they fired their GM? It's a really good question, which does make this game competitive again, but straight up, it can go back and forth for sure like it did earlier this year, and it was pretty much the same situation, but this one's in South Florida, and I can just see a replica of what we saw earlier this year. Buffalo just has to, take care of the football, and if they can do that, that should be the recipe for success, and they should win against a Miami team who's looking to reset, and they are accepting their fate. The Baltimore Ravens look to be back in business with Lamar Jackson. It'll be an interesting battle as the Minnesota Vikings pulled off another, if you want to say, surprise divisional win this season. And that's not what this is, but you do wonder what the Vikings will offer this game, and with the Ravens having difficulties defensively, which it didn't show last game, but it didn't based on whatever you saw. It's just going to be a matter of who can get the offense rolling here. I'm going to pick the Baltimore Ravens with Lamar Jackson. Well, I would say the Jets are doomed. We'll see what adding a wide receiver does, but the Browns are going to have a defensive presence, and while the Jets don't really got much confidence either, the Browns at least, they look better on paper, and they don't got much to lose here. I suppose now that I said that, you can say it about both teams, honestly, but as long as the Browns hold down the run and don't allow wild stuff like their fellow Ohio rival did earlier against the Jets, they should be fine, and the Browns should win this in a close game. Actually, I'm excited for this game. This game has massive meaning for both sides who are topping their divisions currently, which a loss does mean one of these sides could drop out of the league, which is crazy if you think about it. The Patriots are showing their worth even though they almost slipped up last game, and the Buccaneers have hit the reset button over the bye week and they're ready to turn on a switch. It should be an absolute back and forth duel, but when it comes down to it, I am looking at Baker Mayfield to have a massive game, and Drake May is going to have to live up to that, which it's possible, but I feel we've seen the Buccaneers do really good things defensively to help keep their team in games when it does matter, and I know it's not a good track record hosting New England, but we defy the odds here. I'm picking my team to win. The Cardinals, as mentioned, look good for sure after some ugly games, and it's a rematch of the game they could have won earlier this year, and it's on the road against Seattle. Seattle enters this game with a dominant win, but they got to keep going, as one loss could be a make or break for this team that doesn't deserve it, honestly, while the Cardinals, they really need this game. You put all that into the equation, and it will be a big game, and we've also may have seen the end of Kyler Murray. Jacoby Brissett, he's going to be one up to the task. He did pull off a win last week. Believe he can do it again, but it's going to be more of that Seattle can win this offensively, so I feel more confident about that, so I'm picking the Seahawks to win. Oh, I forgot that this was the next game that we were going to talk about after the previous one. It's another NFC West battle. The Rams, they're looking pretty good right now, no issues, while the 49ers, I feel they're hanging on for, it's definitely not dear life, but the injuries, they're kind of weighing down the team. You know what the Rams have, and it's just going to be a matter of offensive discipline, which they did not have earlier in the previous matchup. For the 49ers, it's going to be about making big plays, and that's not what we've seen from this team lately. Mac Jones is the guy still, and we are bound for a close game. However, I expect this time the Rams actually win this as long as they don't play stupid like last time and find every single way possible to lose. So it's time for a Rams redemption win. The Lions were in for, I guess you can say, a surprise loss, while the Commanders, they got nothing going for them. We've seen how the Lions respond after a loss, so we should absolutely see that again. For the Washington Commanders, I just don't got much or really anything to say at this point. Absolutely nothing's clicking, and it seems nothing's ever going to click still, honestly. I don't see it happening again either. And they may very well get just ran over by Detroit, who I am picking, so don't be surprised if the Lions win in a blowout. The Steelers may have won last week, but at this point, I really don't know what to expect week after week. I thought they were on a run at one point, but then they started looking like a weaker team that we saw at the start of the year. I don't know what we'll see, but the Chargers have been doing a lot of good things offensively, so point blank, if it happens again, we should see the Chargers end up getting the win, even though the crowd is not as favorable for the home side compared to the other home games, so we'll just have to see how all things play out, but I just can't see the Steelers beating the Chargers defensively here, so I'm going to pick the LA Chargers. Last game of the week is the Eagles and Packers. The injuries are stacking up for the Packers, meaning they are running out of resources. Yes, they do have good depth at wide receiver and even tight end, but can the others live up to the expectations? That I'm not certain about. Philadelphia Eagles, they've gotten back to their ways, which is a good sign for that team. And it's a matter of, building. If they can get another good team win, it'll be great. And that's what I expect to see, a team that's, more about being all together and taking advantage of having offensive weapons. So let's see the Eagles win it again. All right, so let's talk about that Monday Night Football game, what the tiebreaker score line is going to be. So obviously it's by points. So I have a total of 37 points being scored. The score line, it's 27-10. We know it's in favor of the Philadelphia Eagles here, so I think it could be closer, but we'll see how the Packers look. I just wasn't impressed, so we'll see. All right, for this week's Eliminator Challenge, it was a tough one. We've used a lot of teams that have easier matchups this week, but it really did come down to one team we haven't used out of everyone we have available. And for this week, I'm choosing the Chicago Bears. I believe they'll have a good offensive showing, and like I said earlier, the ask from the New York Giants players is starting to be more and more due to the injuries stacking up, and that means things are becoming more and more unrealistic in my opinion. And this is a team that isn't better than the Bears in general and has what they have, and we'll see what happens. And what does the weather do in this game? That's a scary thing, because if we get deeper and deeper into the year, the opportunity for nasty weather games increases, and this one has an opportunity to be one of those. So it is going to be something to keep in mind as we go through this part of the season and even beyond. All right, so we're going to take a look at how we did this week for the league. So beginning on the results, Zach ends up getting a win. He did really good. Everyone was stacked up once again. Most of us were all tied for second, and then we had Mr. Head Guy in last. I'm sorry, buddy. Sometimes it happens. And then we look at the league leader. It's still me, but that gap is continuing to shrink. I'm getting a little scared, Zach. But yeah, we have Zach who's reeling me in. We got Max and all of them. I would say the top 5, it's quite competitive, but I feel it's probably going to be between one of us 4, honestly, that are in the top 4. All right, so you may be wondering how well we did. I'd say we did a lot of really good things, because we got 8 games with 100% accuracy, so that's incredible. That's the best we've done, the entire season, so I'm proud of everybody. 0% accuracy, that ended up being 4 of those games, so you can kind of tell we were all picking pretty much around the same way for the most part. So that one divisional matchup, surprise that no one picked Pittsburgh, honestly. That one where Carolina won, interesting one, and then the Arizona one where they did come out of that bye week and shocked us, honestly. All right, we're heading to the replay booth for week 9, so let's take a look into what I said a week ago. They will play the Baltimore Ravens, who are returning back healthy. They will indeed have Lamar Jackson. And I'm concerned with the points that Baltimore's been allowing. Pretty good for them. But I do even though Miami had the chances to win. Because Minnesota doesn't know how to prevent the quarterback from getting absolutely obliterated. Not this time for some reason. Which is why they've seen 3 quarterbacks play already this season. And they'll be playing up north against the Green Bay Packers, who are sporting throwbacks to 1923. So maybe they shouldn't wear those throwbacks anymore after that game. It's hard to tell right now what's going to happen. But possibly this could be a run-heavy game. I can't say that we expected this game to go exactly the way it did, for sure. Interceptions, they're not pretty, but he hasn't had help from. I'm picking the team that feels extremely good and looks like they can win out right now. Starting to reconsider that again. So I'm going to try to defy the odds here, and maybe the bye week helps them out. However, I would say it helped them out for sure. And they have been better off. And I did forget that they won previously. But you may get a shot at redemption. However, they're going to have to put together a great game, because it's a Dallas home game, and they have scored lots of points, as we mentioned on this channel. That did not matter this time around. I'm shocked about it. Maybe one day I'll get the score and points dead accurate. Stay tuned for week 10. All right, that's going to be it for this week. Hope you enjoyed this edition, and subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Still trying to get control of literally everything on the channel from the last month now, so hopefully at some point we can do that. Anyways, that's going to be it from me, and we'll see you soon.